Alright, in this video we're going to take a look on how to export a list of parts and then using Vectrix Aspire vCarve Pro to import and do a batch import, and also take a look at some of Aspire's new features of toolpath templating. So with the cabinets entered in the list, you can enter in another cabinet as well. Let's go ahead and enter in when it's 15 and add that to the list. Now we have two cabinets entered in here. We're going to go to File, Save Dxf Files. I'm going to select a folder. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm just going to name it Test Import. Selecting OK. So we've now created a folder on our desktop that has a list of all these Dxf files. Now going to Aspire or vCarve Pro, entering in the width and the height, or your material, along with the material thickness, and selecting OK. Now go to Gadgets, and then Dxf Batch Import. This is a gadget to be able to import a list of Dxf files, or all Dxf files that are within a single folder. So we're going to go to Choose the Folder, and we're going to choose the folder that was just exported out of CabinetPartsPro. Selecting the desktop. Test import, and then it also created a folder that is 0.75 plywood. In this case, this job that we have entered in here was only using 3/4 inch plywood. If the job had some 1/4 inch plywood or different material thickness, it would have created another folder. For example, if we had our backs set to be 1/4 inch backs rather than 3/4 inch, it would have given us a folder that said, 0.25 plywood, and all the parts that fit on 3/4 inch material would get put into that folder. But in this case, we are using the same material throughout, so when we have one folder that's been created. Once you have this folder selected, selecting OK, and then going through and just quickly going through and entering in or setting the number of rows in the gap between each for the layout. So the way it does it is it will import all the Dxf files in kind of a rectangular array of parts based on the number of drawings in each row, the gap in the X and the gap in the Y. The drawing dimensions are entered in here. The Z thickness is 3/4 inch, lower left, and 0 to the top. And once you select OK, it tells us that there's been a total number of files, 17 files selected. And once we say OK, we could zoom out and see all of the files that have been selected. So at this point, you could do a Control A or do a sweep select to select all of the parts that have been imported. Then coming over to the nest feature and just filling in the parameters for the nesting. If you want to allow rotation in cabinets, it's either going to be 0 or 90. In this case, I'm not going to allow any rotations. We do not want the parts to fit in one another. And we are good to preview. You can see it's nested across 2 sheets. Selecting OK. Now we could view the different sheets by going to the Layers tab and then Active Sheet. You can see sheet number 1 and sheet number 2. So we're going to quickly take a look now at a feature of toolpath selecting. So I'm going to zoom in here on just this one here. All the layers that have been brought in, that have been created by CabinetPartsPro, have been brought in just the same that they show up in the part nester. list. So if we go in here and nest them in CabinetPartsPro, the same layers names that are showing up in this list here are also going to show up in the layer listing of vCarve Pro or Aspire. So now the toolpath, we could use our Vectrix selector for this. So the first thing we'll do is the drilling toolpath for all the shelf holes and hinge holes. I'm not going to go in and set any kind of depth at this point. We're going to come straight down to the selector, and we want to do all closed vectors, could do only circles, and we want to associate with the toolpath. And since they are imported Dxf files that have depths associated with everything, we could use this set toolpath cut from depth. And now we will do shelf holes and select close. Now notice the depth has already been selected here and entered here based on the depth of the holes. We'll give this a name of shelf. And select the cutter that we would want to use for this. Then calculate. We could do the same thing for the rest of the items in the list. So for example, if we want to let's just do the datas. We could do a profile, 1/4 inch cutter, just using the selector, do all closed vectors, associate, set the toolpath cut depth from imported vectors, and we'll do the bottom side dados and the top blind dados. Both of those two dados will have the same exact depths, and as you select them, you could see that item is being selected. Now we will close, and once we close, we'll see the depth is automatically entered in based on the imported depth of that vector. Give it a name. Then calculate. Now I noticed I should have on the inside and calculate. So that is the basics. We can just go through and continue the same thing for the rest of the toolpaths. But that is the basics of using the Dxf Batch Importer and using the new selector, which the selector really isn't new, but using the selector, the set toolpath cut depth from imported vectors is a new feature of the newest version of Aspire and vCarve Pro.